I ended up not having to put any money into this deal at all. So the $180,000 that I borrowed includes the purchase, it includes the rehab. Oh, it includes 6 months of mortgage payments. It is about to sell for just under $270. I'm all in for $180, effectively all in for $180, all of it borrowed and selling for $270. Welcome to the Cincinnati Real Estate Investing Show. I am your host, Slocomb, and I'm here in the studio by myself today, giving you what I find to be a really compelling topic, something I hope that you engage with. I will say, starting out, it's the middle of the summer. We don't plan to do a lot of these solo shows, but our ability to get together and record, combine that with the guests we're genuinely interested in interviewing and their availability, we're a bit light on inventory for the show. And so I wanted to make sure you still got an episode this Monday. And I believe this is a topic that can add value to everyone who is listening and watching. The title of this episode is The Only Two Components of the Infinite Real Estate Glitch. There is a kind of bonus part of the second component. I'll get to that later, but there are really only two things you need for the infinite real estate glitch. Now, what do I mean by the infinite real estate glitch? What I mean is that once you figure this out, the only limitations to the amount of real estate that you can acquire and execute on, make money with, the only limitations are the great deals that you can find, fund, and execute on. And you'll be able to fund a lot more than you think when you get to the point that you're ready for this. Not a get rich quick scheme. It's something I'm personally living right now, but I'm a dozen years into the business. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done a lot of learning, books, podcasts, deals that expanded my comfort zone by one or two rungs, the new thing that I hadn't done before that I needed to learn, where I could bring some of the expertise I already had to a deal and learn one or two things new to make sure I wasn't in a position where I was going to lose my shirt. In your journey, like mine, there's going to be a lot of hard work, digging out of bad situations, possibly losing money on deals, making mistakes. I'm not saying this is get rich quick, but I am saying that there are components to real estate investing that work specifically well in Cincinnati that you can learn through doing and studying, but mostly doing, and get to the point where you really have very few limitations on what you're capable of doing with real estate investing. So let's get into the two components. The first component is the ability to force appreciation. What I mean is buying real estate, improving it, improving the quality, increasing the value so that it's worth significantly more than the money that you've put into buying it and getting it improved. Call it rehab, remodel, CapEx, increasing NOI for commercial property. You've put a lot less money into it than it's worth. And you've created a margin of forced equity or bonus equity, bonus appreciation, whatever you want to call it. That's money that you can make immediately through selling the property. Or if you have enough of a margin, you can refinance, pull all of your capital back out because you have enough of a margin there. That'll be the equity the new refinance loan requires. You've got all your money back. You can go do it again. Now, I just steamrolled right over years of learning how to analyze neighborhoods, rehab budgets, working with contractors. Those things all take work. But my goal here is to show you that there are really only two things that you need to get to the infinite real estate glitch of being able to do significantly more deals, acquire significantly more real estate, build wealth significantly faster than you're expecting, and have very few limitations on what it is that you're capable of doing. So I'm going to steamroll over a lot of things, except to say there's a lot of hard work and mistakes and sweat and literal blood and tears sometimes. Not too much blood, maybe too much tears, but there's a lot of work that goes into this. And I'm not saying that it's easy. I am saying that when you get all of the skills together, it is worth it 100%. I referenced there at the end of component one, the ability to force appreciation, the refinance. The second component of the infinite real estate glitch is leverage. It's the debt that you can get, and to some degree, being able to invest with other people's money. I'll come back to that. But the fact that we're in real estate allows us to borrow more than just the majority of the funds necessary to purchase and improve our assets, our investments. Where you're looking at refinances where you can pull out up to 70 or depending on the asset, if it's a single family, maybe 80% of the value of the property after you've forced appreciation. It's not based on how much money you have in it after a certain time period. It's based on the value value that you've been able to create. I'll get into some examples in a moment if some of this isn't making sense for you. But when you can be all in, purchase, rehab, cost of debt, everything, utilities, other carry costs, insurance, and you can be all in for less than 70% of the resulting value of the property that you've purchased, you can go borrow more money than you have in the deal, get your money back and then some, and still have a solid amount of equity in solid real estate, assuming that you bought right and you bought a property that's going to perform well for you. Get it rented, make sure it's going to be cash flow positive, and then you have cash flow supporting the equity that you've created for yourself and gotten all of your money back out of it. There are a lot of acronyms for what I'm talking about here. Of course, to some degree, I'm describing a BRRRR deal. That's a BRRRR with 4 R's. Feel free to Google it. There are lots of great resources out there. But the point I'm trying to make is that you can exponentially increase your capacity to invest when you're investing in real estate and you're forcing appreciation and taking advantage of leverage. Now, let me say here, before I go into the other aspect of leverage, that borrowing money always comes with risk. I'm not trying to say that it doesn't. And the higher the interest, typically the higher the risk. The higher your loan to value or your loan to cost, the higher the risk as well. I'm making the assumption here that you are either along the path of getting really good at this, developing the skills, experience, expertise, getting the reps in to know how these things are going to go, understanding the contingency plans that you need to have, or you are developing the ability to get back up off the mat when you've been punched in the mouth. So the other piece that really helps here with leverage is the ability to borrow almost all, sometimes even all of the cost of the purchase of the real estate and the construction. The more experience you have, the more relationships you develop with the right people, the right lenders, you'll be able to borrow 100% of the cost of doing the deal, the purchase, the renovation, even the carry costs, even the mortgage payments. And you'll have to come out of pocket very little, or only come out of pocket until you can get a construction draw from the loan and get your money back that you just paid to contractors. And that significantly expands your ability to acquire real estate as well. Again, I'm not telling you to be irresponsible and go from doing 1 deal at a time to doing 10 deals at a time, but you can build up to the 10 deals at a time. I'll talk a little bit about that in my examples as well. The loans that you're capable of getting up front have significantly higher interest. We usually call them hard money loans. I tend to be at an APR of about 14 because I'm not going to the cheapest lenders. I'm going to the best, fastest, the ones that I know will get the loan done and get it done quickly for me, who are easy to work with. If you want those connections, please reach out and I will personally introduce you to the lenders that I personally use for these kinds of deals. And you'll hear a couple examples in a moment. When you combine the ability, once you've developed the skills, proven yourself, you have a track record that you can show to lenders, banks, hard money lenders. When you have that, the ability to borrow almost all, if not all, of the money that you need up front and then refinance out or just force appreciation and take it as profit is tremendous.
Close to $1 billion in new development is taking shape across greater Cincinnati right now. Here's your Queen City Pulse. Westchester Township bought 75 acres at the Interstate 75 and Union Center interchange for $18.3 million. Then took over a project 3 private developers couldn't make pencil. At full build-out, they're forecasting $600 to $700 million in total investment on the mixed-use district with research space, housing, and retail. Over in Pleasant Ridge, Urban Sites just landed its next project, and its pipeline is now approaching $200 million. The plan for the old Burger King site on Montgomery Road calls for a mid-rise with 124 apartments and 5,000 square feet of retail. This is the same corner the Pleasant Ridge Development Corp has been assembling since 2019. Up in Fairfield, the city is moving ahead on its Marsh Park lakefront, including a 6,000 square foot commercial space they're building for a restaurant or a brewery. A few hundred residents are pushing back on size, but it's going to be an amazing development once. And on Fountain Square, Skyline Chili opened its largest location ever, 9,000 square feet on a 10-year lease from Fifth. It's massive and definitely a spot we'll have to check out on our next Investors Field. That's the Queen City Pulse. Back to the show.
We're going to be recording a special episode of the Cincy REI show here soon with guests who get to decide what we talk about, any topic they want within Cincy REI, and ask us any questions that we'll answer with full transparency. If you want to be one of those guests, it's really simple. Go to your favorite social media platform between Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn and send out a post that says you listen to the show, you like it, share that you're a fan of the podcast, tell your people that they should listen to it as well. Put a link to the podcast in your post and tag us in it, the Cincy REI show account on your preferred platform. And when we see that, we'll DM you an invite to find a time to schedule this recording with us. We'd love to have you. Hope to see you there. The bonus component to part 2, leverage, is investing with other people's money. Now, I will say, you really need to be an expert in what you're doing before you take other people's money to do it. And you really shouldn't be bringing in, especially partners on the equity side, where there's more potential reward, but there's also more potential risk for the people investing with you and in you. You really should only be doing that when it's a deal that you've done before at a different property and you're executing on it again, not for the first time, but expanding your capacity to do deals you've done before because you're able to acquire more because you're investing not only your own money, but also in taking money from other investors to invest alongside yours. When you combine the leverage that's available to us, even when we buy stabilized assets up front and we're getting 80% loan to value, maybe 75, maybe 70, when you combine that with the ability to invest alongside others who know and trust you and are eager at the opportunity to get better than market returns based on your ability to execute on the deals that you're putting together, it vastly expands your capacity to do what you're already good at. I will say that again, do not edit this, put it in twice. Other people's money expands your capacity to do what you are already capable of doing. This is not about finding a new investment asset class, niche, strategy, and bringing other people along for the wild ride. This is about being able to do more of what you're already good at because other people are investing alongside of you based on their confidence in you and your experience, your expertise, your ability to execute on the great deals that you're able to identify and acquire. Now let's bring this infinite real estate glitch and the component number 1, forcing appreciation, and component number 2, leverage to expand your ability to invest. I want to give you some real life examples. And because this is a solo show, and I'm not really shooting from the hip, but I am flying solo, I want to give you some deals that I've done recently where these two components have led to me being able to do significantly more real estate than I'm currently doing. I'm going to leave out addresses. I'm going to speak in very broad terms because some of these deals I still own, and I honestly hope my tenants listen to this podcast because I hope they're putting themselves in a position to learn from and do the things that we discuss here. So I'm not going to get intimate enough that anyone could be concerned that I'm sharing something private. The first example is a single family. We're going to call it the cottage on Winton Woods because it's a single family house that it only sits on 3/4 of an acre itself, but it backs up to Winton Woods. And so it feels like you're surrounded by the woods. I fell in love with it. I probably overpaid a little bit when I bought it, but I didn't think I was going to sell it. It actually closes tomorrow. We got the clear to close earlier today, and I'm excited. I'm excited for the person who's buying it from me because I over improved a bit because I like it myself. And I actually took my daughters, I took them to this house when we were early on in the rehab last fall, very early in the rehab. It was right after buying it because there's a creek that runs behind the property. And so I took them there to show my wife, hey, here's what it looks like at the beginning, and you'll see the after photos later. But yeah, gorgeous. Took them down the hill in the backyard to the creek, played in the creek with them. I liked this house. I ended up deciding to sell it. So let me get into component 2 first, because there's really compelling debt here up front. I ended up borrowing $180,000 for this house. Now, a lot of that, most of it was the purchase price, but because of my experience, because of my expertise, the years that I've put into this, the deals that I've done, the lender that I have, the cross collateral, where the normal down payment that this lender would require, they're willing to take a second position mortgage on another small multifamily that I have that has a very significant amount of equity. I ended up not having to put any money into this deal at all. So the $180,000 that I borrowed includes the purchase, it includes the rehab. Oh, it includes 6 months of mortgage payments. So I have owned it for a little more than 6 months. So I've made some of my own mortgage payments on top of the 180, but you get the picture. It is about to sell for just under 270. And so I'm all in for 180, effectively all in for 180, all of it borrowed and selling for 270. There are some seller concessions. And so I'll let you do your own math, make this more relevant to your own case, factor in the realtor commissions that you would pay when you're looking at these numbers. But the real thing here is that it's twofold. One is based on my experience and the reps that I'm telling you that you should get in, or that you should find an operator who has this experience. I qualify for a compelling loan. My experience also led me to recognize how sweet of a deal this is. All of the work, with the exception of the foundation work, it did need a concrete block wall in the basement rebuilt. It needed a foundation steel piers tying it into the bedrock underneath the ground, and it needed some steel beams put in the basement. But outside of that work, everything was done by contractors who effectively work for me full time, whether they're employees of mine and we sell their services, or they're independent contractors who work for me effectively full time. All in for 180, a little over 180, but loan for 180, selling for just under 270 with some seller paid closing costs in there. I'll let you run the math on what that would look like for yourself based on your own cost of sales. But the ability to borrow the money up front and the ability to execute on the forcing of appreciation of this house means that very little of my time and very little of my money went into making this money. That's what makes it the infinite real estate glitch. Very little of my time, very little of my money involved in making the money that I'm going to make here. Example number 2 is the Mount Airy Ranch. It's in Mount Airy. It's in Northwest Schools, though. It was brought to me by a wholesaler who didn't have a very big buyer's list, and it wasn't a deal that he could flip himself because the seller was only willing to sell if they could remain in the home. So someone was going to have to be willing to inherit a tenant who wanted to be there for the long term. There's a sale-leaseback situation where the owner was using the equity in the home to pay off his mortgage, but also pay down his other debts so that he could be debt-free, live on his Social Security and pension, and pay rent to continue living in the home for as long as it remains suitable for him. My experience here helped me recognize the opportunity based on what I could buy it for, what it would be worth. The fact that I toured it and I could see the work that had been done when it was remodeled in 2018 and sold to this gentleman. And I could recognize how much bonus equity there was in this deal, and frankly, how little I would have to do because I was inheriting a tenant who was qualified to pay market rent to live there after I purchased it. This is another example where, in fact, in this case, I left closing with a house and a check because of how much I was able to borrow with a hard money lender in a very similar situation. I was borrowing the first 6 months interest payments along with the entire purchase price of the property with using cross collateral from another one of my multifamilies. I left the closing with the check and the house. And earlier this year, or maybe it was late last year, several months ago, I executed a refinance, just a rate and term refi to get the house moved over to long-term fixed rate debt and pay off the hard money lender. I got my cash up front on this one, but my experience, my expertise led me to identify the opportunity here, identify the seller who would be a great tenant after I took over, and my ability to qualify for the kind of financing that meant that I never put any money into this property. That's not true. There were legitimate plumbing issues that surfaced right after we closed and things that I had to send guys over to fix, but basically had no money in the deal, got my cash out, quote unquote, up front, and then refinance rate and term with a compelling 30-year fixed rate mortgage afterwards. Third example gets into other people's money. I'm going to call it the 50-50 house because I am 50-50 partners in flipping about a house a year with a partner. I identify the deal. I'm responsible for executing on it and then getting it sold. He brings the capital. He gets all of his capital back before I take a dime, and then we split the remainder 50-50. The numbers I'd like to give on this deal are the projections that we had when we bought it at the end of 2024. Rehab took a lot longer than expected, but because we paid cash, no cost of debt meant that taking a lot longer than expected meant with very low carry costs that we weren't losing all that much money waiting on the wrong contractors until we fired them. This house was purchased and rehabbed for $110,000 on an ARV of 185. So figure out your carry costs would be low. figure out your known numbers here. Imagine you don't have debt, just insurance, taxes, utilities, etc. Your cost of sales, how much your charge, how much you are paying a realtor to list it on the open market to get highest and best buyers, and then split the resulting profit 50-50, and you get half of it and the person who brought you the capital gets the other half of it. That's not a bad deal. It hasn't involved any of my capital, and it involved very little of my time, primarily because almost all the contractors we used, the ones who were good, not the ones we had to fire, the ones that were good were all in-house and work for me, which again is another advantage of doing this at the scale that I have people who work for me full time who are capable of forcing appreciation in deals like this. This particular house is in Claremont County. It's far enough out into the country that it's the part of town where the size of the house doesn't matter as much as how far away it is from the neighbors. Everybody wants a nice big yard. And some of the improvements that we made here were to that effect, making sure the nice big flat part of the yard was fully fenced in, adding privacy wherever possible, and leaning into the lifestyle that people want when they move into that area. But again, ability to get in front of a great deal. The first two were brought to me by wholesalers, the Cottage in Winton Woods and the Mount Airy Ranch. This one came from a wholesaler, but basically direct to seller with us, knowing a guy who knows a guy and getting a good deal buying it, being able to buy it at a price where we could force appreciation and be all in for significantly less than it would be worth when we were done. I'm going to stick with the late 2024 ARV number here of 185,000. It's going to end up selling for well more than that, but let's stick with the 185. And you can see how much money can be made in a situation like this with your expertise on deals you've already done, but without your capital and only needing the amount of time required to coordinate the contractors on what was almost exclusively a cosmetic flip. Fourth example here, I'm going to call the 6-building apartment deal. Ian Cruz and I closed on a deal last year, 2025, that involved us acquiring effectively 6 of the brick bunker 1960s 12 units that you find all over Cincinnati. I had never bought 6 of them at once. I'd never executed on 6 of them at once before, but I had executed on 1 or 2 of them many times, a dozen times. And so what changed for us was through our partnership and the people who were not only willing but eager to invest in our deals, the people who already knew, liked, and trusted us and understood that I was executing on a plan, a business plan that I had run, plays I had called many times before. I just hadn't done it 6 times all at once. That deal, about 15 months in now, is still going well. And the reason why Ian and I were able to take down these 6 buildings at once is because of the good debt that is available for the acquisition of basically all real estate, at least residential or primary residence real estate, and our skills and our experience in recognizing a good deal and then executing on it to force appreciation through increasing NOI. Thanks for listening to this episode. My company, 3 Little Pigs, and I, we're expert operators at real estate investing in Greater Cincinnati, and we created this podcast to add value to you and to anyone who wants to listen to content like this. You can also find us all over social media if that's your preference. If you're looking to engage an expert operator for your investments in the Greater Cincinnati area, please reach out to us. Our platform includes property management by me through Keller Williams Seven Hills Realty. We're also general contractors. We have in-house maintenance and in-house HVAC, and we share the entire platform with the private equity opportunities that we create. We also take on third-party clients to operate their investments as well, the property management, the general contracting, in-house maintenance and HVAC, and we can also do a lot of the residential sales. So if you're an active or passive investor looking to partner with an expert Cincinnati operator, please reach out to us. You can find our contact info in the bio. So another piece of what makes this an appropriate topic for a real estate investing podcast that takes pride in being Cincinnati specific is that this real estate glitch has been working in Cincinnati for at least a dozen years. That's the dozen years that I've been doing it, that I've been experiencing it myself. It's probably been decades. I feel at this point like we all know the boomer who put themselves through college by buying a duplex and living in one of them and bagging groceries and taking night classes. The infinite real estate glitch has been a thing for a while. But Cincinnati as a market is, I'll say, evergreen. Yeah, we have a little bit of growth all the time, no matter where we are in the market cycle. I'm not sure if it'll air before or after this episode, but last night I interviewed Joe Fairless at the Best Ever Meetup, which you should come to. Link will be in the bio. Quick note on that. The next Best Ever Meetup in Cincinnati, Ash Patel, the last Tuesday of July. We're going to have a lot of fun. He always brings immense value, specializes in all things non-residential commercial. Not just the biggest, the best deal junkie I've ever seen. His ability to take the stuff that's publicly available on Crexy or LoopNet and do some sleuthing and figure out the real viability of a commercial real estate deal it's just profound. I'm really excited to have him in the room. So I hope you're there. We'll have the link in the bio for registering for that, or get into the Facebook group for Cincinnati's Best Ever REI Mastermind, and you can register from there. I hope to see you guys last Tuesday in July. Joe Fairless last night said that Cincinnati is among the Midwestern markets that are just slow and steady wins the race. They're consistent. It doesn't matter where you are in the market cycle. You don't buy in Cincinnati to rely on massive appreciation, and you don't buy in Cincinnati expecting that you'll ever have significant drops in property value. The other thing about this, though, is that the ability to execute on the infinite real estate glitch doesn't depend on where the market is going. It depends on your ability to identify the right kind of deal and execute on it based on today's values. That's why Cincinnati is an evergreen market, and this is an evergreen investing strategy. So for those of you listening who are active investors, my hope and my expectation is that the Cincy REI show is a resource every week that helps you get on the path to getting to your own infinite real estate glitch, accomplishing your own personal financial wealth building, giving, philanthropic goals through real estate investing. And for those of you who are passive investors who want the ability to get better than market returns for your money, I hope that this podcast and this episode helps you recognize who the right partners, operators, GPs are for you to connect with, to find the right opportunities with the people who have the skills, who have been knocked down 9 times and gotten back up 10, to invest in, to invest with, to accomplish your investing, your personal financial, your charitable goals as well. Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. I appreciate you listeners, and I hope that if you haven't already subscribed to the show, you do now. Please do leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to this. Share this episode with a friend so that you can nitpick and criticize and say whatever you want to about what I'm calling the infinite real estate glitch, but share the episode with them. Help us gain exposure. I appreciate you. Thank you, and I will see you next week. Quick disclaimer, the opinions expressed on this podcast are provided for informational purposes only. This is not an offer to buy or sell any securities, to make or consider any investment or course of action, and it is not an offer of agency from Slocomb Reed or Keller Williams 7 Hills Realty.